When the most unpredictable guest in television history meets the most diplomatic late-night host, sparks are inevitable, and on this particular night, they ignited into one of the most explosive live television moments ever broadcast. What began as a routine taping of The Tonight Show quickly unraveled into a clash so raw that producers were scrambling. The audience sat frozen in stunned silence, and one very famous guest stormed off the stage. The evening began with the usual buzz inside the studio, though something in the air felt different. Donald Trump was scheduled as the main guest, promoting his latest business venture, and everyone backstage knew that meant unpredictability was guaranteed. Jimmy Fallon, with his reputation for keeping things light and making even the most difficult guests comfortable, had prepared his typical lineup of playful questions and games. His monologue went smoothly, drawing the expected laughs, but as he introduced Trump with his trademark enthusiasm, a tension settled over the room that even the cameras seemed to catch. Trump entered confidently, soaking up the audience's mixed reaction of cheers and scattered boos, before sitting down with a smug smirk. Fallon greeted him warmly, but Trump immediately went for the jugular, mocking Jimmy's sad ratings and implying no one watched unless he appeared. Fallon laughed nervously, attempting to redirect the conversation toward Trump's new projects, but Trump refused, pivoting instead to complaints about fake news and accusing Fallon's writers of peddling the same lies as his political critics. The audience, sensing this was no playful banter, grew quiet. Fallon tried to maintain composure, insisting the show was about respect and humor, but Trump pressed harder, accusing Jimmy of selling him out after their infamous, hair-ruffling moment years earlier. Fallon flushed, trying to reassure both Trump and the audience that comedy was meant to poke fun at everyone. But Trump wasn't letting go. He claimed Fallon's monologues targeted him unfairly, sneering that the jokes weren't even funny. In the control room, panic spread. Should they cut to commercial? Ratings were soaring, but the tension on stage had reached a dangerous boil. Fallon reminded Trump that comedy wasn't personal, but Trump snapped back that everything was personal when it touched his reputation, his family, and his life's work. What Fallon defended as humor, Trump condemned as lies, and in that moment the clash became undeniable. The late-night host trying to keep the peace, and the guest determined to ignite chaos, leaving the stage and the audience in shock. As the exchange grew sharper, the line between late-night comedy and hard-hitting confrontation blurred beyond recognition. Trump leaned in, his voice sharp but steady. "People watch you for news, don't they?" he asked. "They get their information from you, from your jokes, from your little skits. You have influence, Jimmy, whether you want to admit it or not." The Tonight Show, built on breezy interviews and playful bits, had never waded into waters this deep. Fallon, visibly tense now, tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground. "I think we should probably move on to talking about your projects," he suggested, his voice betraying strain. "Why?" Trump shot back. "Because you're uncomfortable? Because this is getting too real for your sanitized little show? This is exactly the problem with you media people. You dish it out, but you can't take it when someone calls you on it." The studio audience was riveted, their laughter long gone, phones slipping up despite security's attempts to stop recordings. Fallon insisted he wasn't trying to dodge anything. "Our audience came here to be entertained, not to watch us argue," he said. Trump sneered. "Argue? Is that what you call it when someone points out your hypocrisy? Jimmy, you built your career on being the nice guy, the one who doesn't take sides, but that's all an act, isn't it?" Fallon's jaw tightened at the accusation, and for the first time in his career, his carefully crafted composure began to crack. The studio lights felt hotter, the set smaller as he shot back. "An act, Donald? This isn't an act. This is who I am. I try to bring joy to people's lives, to give them a break from all the negativity in the world." "That's not fake. That's intentional," Trump pounced. "Joy by mocking people? By repeating every stupid rumor and conspiracy theory your writers pick up from Twitter? That's your idea of joy?" Fallon snapped. "We don't repeat conspiracy theories. We make jokes based on what's happening in the news. There's a difference." Trump leaned forward, his voice dropping to that dangerous low tone that signaled trouble. "Let me tell you what's happening in the news, Jimmy. Your show, your network, your entire industry has become a propaganda machine. You pretend to be neutral, but every joke, every laugh, every little smirk is designed to shape public opinion." Fallon shook his head, trying to hold his ground. "That's ridiculous. We're entertainers, not political operatives. Trump pressed harder. Really? Then why don't you ever make jokes about the other side? Why is it always the same targets, the same narratives, the same agenda? In Fallon's earpiece, producers were practically screaming at him to cut to commercial, but something inside him snapped. Years of criticism for being too soft, too neutral, too apolitical bubbled to the surface. You want to know why? He said, his voice sharper now. Because some things aren't funny, Donald. Some things are too serious, too important, too dangerous to joke about. When people's lives are at stake, when democracy itself is under threat, maybe comedy isn't the right response. The audience gasped. Jimmy Fallon, the man who had built his entire brand on avoiding controversy, had just taken a clear political stance, live on national television. Trump smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just gotten exactly what they wanted. There it is, he said. Finally, some honesty. You just admitted what everyone already knew. You're not a comedian, Jimmy. You're an activist. You're part of the resistance, part of the machine trying to destroy anyone who doesn't fit your narrative. Fallon stood, something he had never done during a contentious interview. The audience murmured, sensing the gravity of the moment. I'm not trying to destroy anyone, Fallon said, his voice firm now. I'm trying to protect. He paused as if weighing whether to go further. Trump interrupted, his voice like a blade. Protect what? Your version of the truth? Your vision of how the world should be? Who made you the arbiter of what's dangerous and what's funny? Fallon straightened, his hands gripping the edge of his desk. Nobody made me anything, he said. But I have a platform and I have a responsibility. When I see lies being spread, when I see people being hurt, when I see our country being torn apart, I can't just sit here and pretend it's all a joke. Trump's eyes narrowed. Lies? What lies, Jimmy? Be specific. Tell me exactly what lies you think I've told. Trump's voice was steady but cutting now. You want me to list them on television right now? Jimmy asked, his face pale but determined. I want you to back up your accusations with facts, Trump replied coldly. You call me a liar, prove it. Show your audience the evidence. Don't hide behind vague allegations and innuendo. In the control room, chaos reigned. The show had gone completely off script. Ratings were exploding, but network executives were practically having panic attacks at the legal and PR nightmare unfolding live on air. Jimmy glanced at his audience, then at Trump, then at the cameras broadcasting this meltdown to millions. He was at a crossroads. This moment would define not just the interview, but his career. You know what, Donald? You're right about one thing, Jimmy said finally, his voice heavy. I have been too nice. Too accommodating. I've let people come on this show and say things I knew weren't true, because I was afraid of making waves. Because I wanted to be liked. Because I thought that was my job. And now I think maybe my job is more important than I thought. Maybe entertaining people isn't enough when the world is burning around us. Trump's expression hardened. The playful antagonism that had characterized the start of the interview was gone, replaced by something sharper.
So you're admitting you've been lying to your audience?
That the whole nice guy act was fake. That you've been using your show to push a political agenda while pretending to be neutral. I'm admitting that I've been a coward, Jimmy said, his voice trembling but firm. I've been afraid to stand up for what I believe in because I was worried about ratings, about sponsors, about keeping everyone happy. But you can't keep everyone happy when some people are actively trying to hurt others. Trump raised an eyebrow. Hurt others? Jimmy, the only person getting hurt here is you. Your credibility, your reputation, your career. You're destroying everything you've built in one night because you can't handle having a real conversation with someone who disagrees with you. The audience was stone silent now, watching two men who embodied different halves of American media and culture collide in what felt like a battle for the soul of entertainment itself. Maybe some things are worth destroying if it means telling the truth, Jimmy shot back. The truth, Trump said mockingly. Your truth? You mean the truth according to Jimmy Fallon and his corporate masters. You think you're being brave, but you're just a puppet. A very expensive, very well-trained puppet. Jimmy's hands shook, whether from anger or adrenaline, no one could tell. The usually jovial host now looked like a man at his breaking point. You want to call me a puppet? Fine. But at least I'm not a puppet master manipulating millions of people with lies and division. At least I'm not destroying people's faith in truth itself. Trump stood too, matching Jimmy's energy. The two men faced each other across the desk like gladiators in an arena. the studio audience an unwilling jury to this unprecedented showdown. Faith and truth, Trump sneered. Jimmy, you wouldn't know the truth if it walked up and introduced itself. You live in a bubble surrounded by people who tell you exactly what you want to hear. When was the last time you talked to a real person? Someone who wasn't paid to agree with you? I talk to real people every day, Jimmy shot back. My audience, my staff, my family, they're all real people with real concerns about what's happening in this country. Trump smirked. Your audience laughs on cue because there's a sign telling them to. Your staff tells you you're wonderful because you sign their paychecks. Your family? Well, I don't know your family, but I'm betting they're just as disconnected from reality as you are. Jimmy's face went scarlet. Trump had crossed a line. Don't you dare bring my family into this, he said, his voice low and shaking. Everything has to do with everything, Jimmy, Trump said, almost relishing the chaos. Your privilege, your wealth, your complete isolation from the consequences of the policies you promote. The studio felt like it might explode. This was no longer a late-night talk show. It was a live, televised cage match. Trump leaned forward, his voice sharp and accusing. You sit here in your ivory tower making jokes about people whose lives you'll never understand. Fallon snapped back instantly, his frustration breaking through. Privilege? You're going to lecture me about privilege? You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You've never worked a real job in your life. Never had to worry about paying rent or putting food on the table. And don't give me that line about jobs. You've bankrupted companies. That's not accomplishment. Trump's tone turned colder, quieter, somehow more menacing than if he'd shouted. You're doing it again, Jimmy. Repeating unproven allegations like they're facts. You came here expecting me to smile, play along, let you fawn over me and walk away with your ego stroked. But I don't need validation from you. Fallon's face hardened. Validation? That's all this is for you? You didn't come here as a favor, Donald. You came here to use my platform to spread your message. You don't do favors, you do transactions. At least I'm honest about what this show is. I try to bring people joy, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's about power. The power to tell the truth. Trump laughed, the sound harsh and mocking, cutting through the studio air. Responsibly? According to who? You? Your network? Your political buddies? Who decides what's responsible, Jimmy? Fallon shot back, his voice trembling but firm. Anyone with a conscience. Anyone who cares more about truth than ratings. Words have consequences. Trump's eyes narrowed. Then you'd better be careful about the words you're using right now. Because this is going out live. Millions are watching your little meltdown. For a moment, Fallon froze, suddenly aware of the cameras, the audience, the millions watching the unprecedented breakdown of late-night civility. Then something shifted in him. He leaned forward, voice low but resolute. Good, let them see it. Let them see what happens when someone finally stops playing games and tells the truth. Trump sneered. The truth? This isn't truth, it's a temper tantrum. This is what happens when someone who's been coddled their entire career finally meets someone who won't kiss their feet. Fallon's response was deadly calm. Get out. The words hit the room like a gunshot. Gasps rippled through the audience. Even Trump blinked, caught off guard. Excuse me? Fallon didn't flinch. You heard me. Get out off my stage. Out of my studio. Away from my show. I'm done with this. I'm done with you. Trump bristled. You can't kick me off. I'm your guest. We have an agreement. Fallon's voice sharpened. Our agreement was for a respectful interview about your projects. You turned it into a personal attack on me, my staff, my family, everything I stand for. That agreement is void. Trump's face darkened. This is breach of contract. This is defamation. This will cost you everything, Jimmy. Fallon didn't flinch. Then so be it. Security. Two massive guards appeared at the edge of the stage, summoned by frantic producers who had finally decided the disaster had gone far enough. Trump straightened his tie, trying to mask his fury with composure. You're making the biggest mistake of your career. Fallon's reply came quick. Maybe. But at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror tomorrow morning. As security guided Trump off stage, he turned one last time, his voice cold and final. This isn't over, Jimmy. Not by a long shot. The studio fell into stunned silence, the audience frozen between applause and fear. Fallon, standing alone behind his desk, finally exhaled and spoke into the microphone, his voice steady. We'll be right back after this commercial break. It was a late-night television moment unlike anything before. A raw collision between two of America's most recognizable figures, stripped of pretense, exposing exactly what they thought of each other.